It is that time for Mr. Tat. That is my response to a tweet. My response to a tweet. And today's tweet says, what happened to hope and change? What happened to hope and change? Well, this is my response. They say if you don't understand your history, you're doomed to repeat it. And one of the things that we do historically is we get fed up of the 8 years under an administration and we're looking for a change. You have to understand something about a liberal. Their strength is also their weakness. They're really, really strong on education. You know, they go to college, they get doctorate degrees and all these things. Not to say conservatives don't, but their education is for a purpose of their utopia. And their utopia is contradictory to our Constitution. So they look at history with looking for all the weak points and the weak moments so that they can overtake or accomplish their liberal utopia, which is really a slave master type outcome. They want to be rulers over everybody, and they think they're the smartest ones on the planet. They know what's more best for you than you do. So keeping this in mind, when they look at this every 8 years, sometimes if in circumstances like Carter and Ford, 4 years, they look at the trends. And so what they capitalized on was our tiredness of Bush. And it created this phrase, hope and change. Now, there's truth inside of their hope and change. It's the perception that they want you to have that we functioned under. And they picked the best person with the best oratorical skills, can talk well, can speak well, presentable. They also looked at the fact that we like to make history. So we finally got a person of color that can speak well and present this hope and change. They adopted a lot of conservative rhetoric in this so that we will feel comfortable even though we're about to make history with the first black president. But what we've come to find out over these 7-8 years, which will turn the tide, is he's an habitual liar. And he knows how to look you in the eye and present his case like it's fact and truth. But he's lying the whole time. And so we got examples like Obamacare will reduce premiums. The private sector's doing well. I'll create shovel-ready jobs. I didn't set a red line in Syria. I never said if you can like your plan, you can keep your plan. You didn't build that. Obamacare won't add one dime to the deficit. So he's saying all these things, and they just sound so good. Whenever he gets off the teleprompter, we hear that truthful hiccup, but then he gets right back to the teleprompter. And then when you add the media's being complicit in this whole thing, liberal media, liberal utopia, it just adds a dynamic that makes it difficult to combat. And so now, what they've looked at in history of America is that we'll be ready for hope and change, say all the conservative things, not adding to the debt, things like this. Bill Ayers was just a guy in my neighborhood, And then when we had people sounding the horn that these things weren't true, our history repeats itself. So we elect Barack Obama. We're doomed to repeat this again if we keep going off of personality and not principle. So the hope and change didn't go anywhere. the thing is that we're learning that his definition of hope and change is different than ours. He wrote a book, 2 books, got Grammys for these books. One, The Dreams of My Father. You got to understand who his father was. And he said it with the fondness of accomplishing those dreams. His father was a communist, a Muslim. He was all these things that America, as far as leadership is concerned, that got Ben Carson in trouble with that truth. All those things that we're not. And he wrote it with a fondness to where it inspired people, but they didn't understand who he was. They didn't read it for that. The people that did, we marginalized them, pushed them to the side, and they created their number one protective word in the world: racist. So anybody that was speaking on behalf of enlightening you about this guy was deemed racist. And nobody wants to be called a racist. So this hope and change that he's meaning is what's being implemented. Now, the last book that he wrote was The Audacity of Hope. So when you look at all these lies, all the things that he's told us that's not true, you have to look at these titles and these slogans different. You have to look at them different. How the audacity of hope turns into, how dare you hope? How dare you hope? I'm the hope. And you're going to have to accept the change. So the dreams of my father, I will bring those dreams into fruition. And how dare you hope? So now we have America losing hope. And the people that have lost the hope more than anyone else, the American citizens, is the black community. They are functioning hopeless. And when you're functioning hopeless, you are now in the realm of functioning desperate. We are watching our African American community function desperate because there's no hope coming out of Americans' leadership with this president. He had no chance of delivering it. The liberal utopia being a slave master, they are accomplishing that with the black community functioning desperate. And as far as the dreams of his father and the audacity of hope, he is accomplishing those dreams, making his father proud. And he's telling the American people, how dare you hope? I'm your hope. Accept my change. And anybody that tries to say anything to the contrary is racist. And the media is totally complicit. Well, hey, how dare you think we stupid? How dare you think that this Constitution will not prevail? And you have the audacity to make our communities hopeless? Got a trick for you, bruh. It's called the elections, and we are going to take your lead on this one, where you did tell the truth, looked us in the eye, and said, I'm going to politicize the killing of Americans. But this is where it's going to backfire. You will not politicize it better than we will and get people to vote against you liberals. Hey, that's my response to a tweet on the Phil Williams Show.